Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Ayşe Süberkaş. On the occasion of the 100th anniversary of diplomatic ties between Turkey and Hungary, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan visited Budapest and met Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban. The leaders signed 16 agreements to deepen bilateral relations in the fields of economy, trade, defense, and energy. In the first 11 months of the year, trade volumes neared $4 billion between the two allies, with a shared target of $6 billion this year. As energy supplies become a critical issue for Europe amid the conflict in Ukraine, Turkey and Hungary are looking to increase cooperation in this field. Their discussions also included Israel's atrocities in Gaza, the conflict in Ukraine, and the expansion of NATO. Turkey and Hungary are the only two NATO countries standing in the way of Sweden's bid to become a member, although both for different reasons. Hungary is also an observer state in the Organisation of Turkic States, leaning towards the group for its shared economic and historic ties. Now, for more on increasing cooperation between Turkey and Hungary, joining me now from Budapest is Marton Ugrojdi. He is the Deputy State Secretary of Hungary. Mr. Ugrojdi, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. So, what's the current state of relations between Turkey and Hungary? I mean, how would you define it?
I would say they're very close and cordial and brotherly at times as well. We've been working extensively together in the last years, and we see trade growing, we see tourism growing, we see defense cooperation growing, we see our joint international efforts growing as well when it comes to the Organisation of the Turkic States or other regions of the world, including Africa. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, I think it's in a great trajectory. And just as the Prime Minister underlined when he was meeting President Erdogan earlier this week, we are ready to be a partner to Turkey when it comes to the next century, when it comes to all the plans that your country has. And also we would like to be part of this success story. So I think it's a really promising state. Of course, there's a lot to be done. Trade still has to grow. We're having more and more direct flights from one country to another. So in that sense, I think we're on a good track. But obviously, there are many details that we should work out. But this is why they have met as well.
So both leaders have agreed to increase the trade volume to $6 billion from the current $3.3 billion. Is this viable, and which industries do you think are likely to fuel growing trade between Turkey and Hungary?
I think it is viable. If you look at how Hungarian foreign trade has been growing in the last 10 to 15 years, the results are really great. And especially if you look at specific fields of cooperation like the defense industry or railway cooperation and these issues, there's a great potential. Hungary has been buying military equipment from Turkey earlier because those equipment are really great, to be honest. And we will put it into very good use within our NATO requirements and also in the role that we're playing in peacekeeping in the wider region and also our immediate neighborhood. So these very specific projects are also great opportunities for further cooperation.
So, Mr. Ugrojdi, Turkey and Hungary are the two remaining members standing in the way of Sweden's NATO membership. What's your country's latest position on that?
The position is, as it's always been, that we're not going to be the last one to ratify. Obviously, we see a great amount of political concern within NATO about this. We see that Turkey has legitimate issues being raised with the Swedish government when it comes to terrorism and other issues, which are much more serious than the problems that we have with Sweden. But we are hopeful that this could be resolved, and in that way, we will be able to welcome Sweden to NATO soon.
So what are Budapest's major concerns before Sweden's full membership into NATO?
I think the most important is, and this has been underlined by both the foreign minister and other leading members of the government, is that we would like to clarify some of the misunderstandings which have emerged in the Swedish political sphere when it comes to, let's say, the quality of democracy in Hungary or any of these allegations. We are proud that this government has won the election in a very resounding way, and we obviously cannot accept any kind of criticism when it comes to the legitimacy of the government. Of course, when it comes to policies, we're open to discussion, but we don't think that these day-to-day political issues should be part of the bilateral relationship, and we would like to have a good bilateral relationship with Sweden in the long run. And before we can accept them as allies, it's really important that we talk about these issues, we iron it out, and then we could restore that level of trust which was between our countries before this these events started to happen, especially in the communication sphere.
So how would Hungary contribute to the membership negotiations of Turkey with the bloc, which have been stalled for a long time?
I think this takes at least two sides. First, Turkey also has to have the political willingness to get closer to the European Union. And we have been always on the side of enlargement when the time is right and when the conditions are met. So I think the Hungarian government will keep pushing the idea that the EU should be enlarged. We see a closer cooperation with Turkey and the European Union as something which is beneficial, both for our economies, also to our security, also that how the EU and Turkey can contribute to the wider security of the European region when it comes to illegal migration and other issues. So in that sense, I think if we talk more, if we get Turkey closer to the table, that's really important, then Hungary will keep pushing for that.
But you say your country favors the enlargement of the bloc, but at the same time, it is strongly opposed to Ukraine's prospective membership into the European Union. Why is that?
Well, just last week when the European Council took place, the Prime Minister walked out, so he did not stand in the way of the start of negotiations with Ukraine, but he underlined it many times that the conditions are not met. Even the report, which was laid on the table by the European Commission, said that Ukraine does not fulfill 3 out of the 7 criteria, which was preset as a precondition of negotiations. So in that regard, we say that, once the conditions are met, once Ukraine and the European Union is ready, we can have a serious discussion on that. But we're not there yet, therefore we shouldn't rush to a decision before all the conditions are met. And that does not only apply to the issue of national minorities, which is one of the bilateral concerns that we have with Ukraine, but also to the overall economic situation, also that Ukraine is still at war as we speak. And the European Union is not ready to accept countries which are at war. So first, these issues will have to be sorted out, and then we can have a realistic conversation on how Ukraine will become the member of the European Union in the long run.
But how is your country's opposition to Ukraine's possible membership is hurting your relations with other member states?
Well, we don't know that how this will play out in the long run. We think that it's not worth rushing into a conclusion where we do not have the preconditions and those preconditions are not met. So sometimes you have this temptation that you have to jump to the end of the film or to the end of the story. But we think that the EU enlargement process is a legal process and you have different steps. You have to take these steps, you have to fulfill the criteria. And once all these are fulfilled, this is the time when we can realistically talk about accession and membership. And if you look at how the European Union has been relating to the countries of the Western Balkans, or Turkey for that instance, you will see that there are many requirements, and the European Union has been very tough on these requirements. And if we would like to preserve the credibility of the EU as a predictable and reliable partner, we think it's really important that the EU plays by its own rules. And the decision which was made, a political decision last week, is not leading us to a direction where the European Union would be observing its own rules, which is, of course, a source of concern.
So is there a collective approach to the Ukraine conflict within the European Union? I'm asking this because, are there any doubts that Ukraine will be able to regain the territory lost in its fight with Russia?
Mm-hmm. The Hungarian position has been clear from the first day of the war that the territorial sovereignty of Ukraine is inviolable and it has to be restored, and that hasn't changed. Of course, we see the reality on the battlefield. We see a protracting conflict, which is becoming more of a war of attrition, which does not seem to be in favor of the Ukrainians defending their country, which is, of course, is a major source of concern. And what the government has been saying, and what the Prime Minister has been saying many times, that the fighting should stop, the parties should start negotiating, and they should work out a ceasefire and a peace agreement which will solve this in the long run. And this is why we were so disappointed to see all the reports that how the peace talks in Istanbul have collapsed last year, because that's the kind of approach that we need. And this is why we are so grateful for the leadership of Turkey as well, that Turkey has been playing a very important role in talking to both of the parties, in ironing out the grain deal last year, and generally speaking, to trying to bring this conflict to an end. And of course, Turkey is much more powerful in the Black Sea region, so their leadership has been crucial in this. And we're looking forward to cooperate on these issues as well, because we truly believe that this war has to stop as soon as possible so we could avoid the killing of all those innocent people dying on the front lines every day.
So how is Hungary, a NATO ally, balancing its relations with Russia at the moment?
I think when it comes to Hungary's membership in NATO, we are very clear. We are already meeting the WELS criteria. We are spending more than 2% of our GDP on defense. We're spending part of that on equipment which is being produced in Turkey. So we're walking the walk when it comes to defense investment, when it comes to ramping up ammunition production, when it comes to how we relate to the reassurance on the eastern flank and deterrence. But this is the military dimension. But when it comes to the economic dimension, and obviously NATO is a military political organization and not an economic organization, then we have to work on the inheritance we have from the Soviet times, where all of the Eastern European countries and Central European countries were dependent on the Soviet Union for natural gas and oil and all the raw materials. And despite the fact that we have been investing heavily in diversifying away from these old lines, including with the help of Turkey once again, and also countries on the Western Balkan, Bulgaria, Serbia, and others, there's still a bit of a homework to be done. And this is why we are very enthusiastic to look at all the opportunities in the Eastern Mediterranean when it comes to access to natural gas, for example. This is why we've been working with Azerbaijan and other countries from the OTS to diversify our sources of energy. Because in the long run, this is the most important question, that how we're going to power our economy, how we're going to heat the homes of Hungarian citizens, and all possible sources in the region and beyond the region are crucial to achieve that kind of independence. But this doesn't happen overnight. So you need time and you need a lot of money to build the alternatives and also to find alternative suppliers.
So Hungary is an observer state at the Organisation of Turkic States. Why is that important for your country, and what are the shared interests of Turkey and Hungary when it comes to international groupings like this one?
We do believe that the more organizations we are part of, the better. This is the idea behind our new foreign policy priority, which is based on connectivity, which is based on reaching out to all possible partners. And OTS is a really good example of that, because we've been observing we've been observer members to this organization for many years now. And it's a great example of how regional cooperation with the leadership of Turkey and Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan and others can lead to an enhanced economic and political dialogue between countries. And as the Prime Minister used to joke, but of course it's not a joke, it's really serious, that Hungary is the westernmost Eastern nation. Many people know that the Hungarian nation came from this region, from Central Asia, according to our story of origin, and we have kept many of these traditions. So we regard these countries as friends and allies and brothers and sisters as well, because we have a cultural attachment. And of course, the leadership role of Turkey in the OTS was a very welcoming sign for us, because then we knew that we can trust this organization because it will be a serious one. And ironically, if you will, we saw it when the war in Ukraine started last year, that other European leaders have also recognized the importance of the OTS country. But they went to Baku, they went to Uzbekistan and other countries, but we were there before them.
But how have shifting geostrategic balances pushed some Western European countries, as well as the United States, to seek more integration and access to Central Asia?
This has been a long-standing issue. I think it's been there for more than 100 years. So if you look at the grand geostrategic ideas of the early 20th century, you will see that Central Asia was always at the heart of these discussions. And this is why OTS is so useful, and this is why we are happy to be observers to this organization, that it allows us to engage all the leaders at the same time. We have very intense bilateral relationship with all of them, I have to say. But on the top of that, any of these regional initiatives where you can talk about business, where you can talk talk about security, where you can talk about all those pressing daily problems around energy security, and you name it, you will see that there's a great amount of momentum building up, and organizations like OTS are great to multiply our national interest and our weight in engaging countries which would be otherwise maybe hard to reach.
All right, Mr. Groji. Unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.
Thank you for having me.